This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? There we go. Your dial is set correctly to USAPrepares.com. Broadcasting 2 hours daily from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. There's a link to all of your instructors on the website. USA Prepares, USAPREPARES.com. Podcasts are free. Let's go to USAPrepares.com. Converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. Tom's producing the broadcast. And with us today, John Reagan. Welcome, John Reagan.
This is your captain speaking. I need to issue a travel warning today. We are approaching peak phosphonorb season. And if you go anywhere near D.C., you might be covered with phosphonorb.
John Reagan, I'll tell you what, we had what a meetup last night, and thanks for giving us the update on the economy at the meetup last night. I'd like to share with the class what happened. Absolutely packed house, literally packed house, and we had 7 instructors there. Linus Ertley was there, and Ken Hurley, Judy Dollarhite, John Dollarhite, Roy Birdsong. You were there, and I was there. And we saw, after your update, we saw a video, and it was called Agenda, the Grinding Down of America. Class, I suggest that you watch that. You can find it on the internet, and it will connect a lot of the dots for you as to who's doing what and why and to whom. And it even discusses Obama and how he got where he is and how these people selected who they selected to do their dirty work and where it originated. And, John, when I got there, there was a newspaper called the Community Free Press. It's circulated all over the Ozarks. I believe there's over 26,000 copies of this paper. And on the front page, did you see the front page?
Yes, I did.
There we are, USAPrepares.com, and it shows a meetup for Preparedness Month. And front and center on page 1, the cover is our meetup at USA Prepares at Ziggy's. So I have posted this twice on the website before this broadcast, so we could share this with our class today if they want to see how funny looking we all are. They could go to it, but it has not posted. So I'll try during one of the commercial breaks. But I just wanted to share that with the class that we did appear in the media. And it's kind of unusual because the media, I think they've been told to stay away from us because of how dangerous they think we are. But John Reagan, last night, you and I, well, what happened first was one of our students, a middle-aged guy, about, maybe a few years younger than I am, came up to me kind of privately, wanted to talk. And this was during the movie. And, John, he said that he referenced something that I said publicly on the air about a woman who was melting down at the farm festival in Indiana because she couldn't handle all of the information that was coming her way. We're talking about the dangers of immunizations. We're talking about the food supply contamination, chemtrails, electromagnetic radiation, fluoride in the water supply, the healthcare morass that the current administration is putting us in, the loss of liberties, cops on every street corner with their radar guns. All of these things. I mean, it's just a few. But all the things put together she could not handle. And she literally threw her hands up in the air, almost in the surrender position, or the surrender position, say, I can't handle it, I can't handle it. And so I mentioned that on the air, and one of our students at the meetup came up to me and he referenced that, and he said, well, you know, this is overwhelming. Now, I didn't realize, John, that there was more than one person that felt that way. So would it be all right with you if we discuss what some people are experiencing, which is an overwhelming amount of information overload, and they're having trouble dealing with what we're talking about? What do you think?
Yeah, but there's no doubt, especially when you're first waking up, that there is just so much information out there, and you don't know what of it's real, what of it's not, and it really doesn't take long before you're overwhelmed and don't know which way to turn. The other side of that gets to be rather emotional, in that when you realize what the situation is, then you end up with a grief response, because you're, in this case, not dealing with the loss of a loved one, but you're dealing with a loss of the future that you thought you could have.
Well, that's a really good point, John, because all of us had stolen from us the future that we expected that we would be able to make for ourselves. For example, our parents wanted a better situation for our lives than they had, and their parents felt the same way, and their parents felt the same way. So each generation wants his children, her children, to do better. And this is the generation that's not going to do better. Our children are not going to do as well as we have done, because their dreams have been stolen from them by the system, the economy. The educational system has dumbed them down. John, I remember saying to my son, he was homeschooled all of his life, and when when we moved to Missouri, he thought he'd like to try school. So he was going to be a freshman for the first time in his life, actually sit in a classroom for the first time in his life. And he did it as a freshman. And after 6 months, I said to him, we got to get you out of there. You're getting dumber by the minute. And I wasn't kidding. I really wasn't kidding. Ultimately, we had to get him out of that school because there was no homework. The students couldn't speak well. They were losing the vocabulary, and they turned them into a bunch of minions who would work for the government. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. And the centerpiece of that school was the band. That was the centerpiece. It was horrible. There was very little focus on academic achievement. As a matter of fact, John, I was so upset and so angry with what that superintendent was doing. I ran for school board office. And I told her my first objective was to fire her. And that's what I would have done, but I only got 1/8 of the votes. So, John, let's talk about it. We are depressed, right? About what's going on. Well, not all of us, but some of us, right?
Well, again, if we go back to grief, and everybody does handle it in different ways, but generally there's 4 stages. Right. The first of those is usually denial. You just can't believe it's happening.
Yeah.
And I also tend to include those that think they can bug out as suffering from denial too, because you need to be living the lifestyle. Number one, just simply to have your skills honed. And number 2, there's no guarantee that you're going to get an opportunity to travel unless it's just a few miles away.
Well, that's a really good point, John, and I'll tell you why. There's one of our students at the meetup is talking about bugging out, and I was in disbelief, absolute disbelief. A city dweller is thinking about bugging out. And I was talking to one of our other students about that. She was sharing with me that, one of our students wants to, just be ready to bug out. It's impossible to survive for the long term, bugging out, without without the system behind you. You know, we could talk about hobos and they live off the land, but they live off the supply chain too. You know, things that people throw away, but there's still a supply chain. Yeah, they're gatherers and scavengers, but there's still a supply chain that they depend on, and they depend on the goodwill of others. Well, in the situation we're talking about, like an economic collapse, for example, there's not going to be a lot of goodwill to go around. So you have to have what you need where you are. And a good place to start would be to have a farm, right?
Exactly. And it doesn't even have to be a big one.
Right. Well, let's continue. So we've got denial.
And typically after denial, you get anger. Because you've had this loss, and you want to get even with those that took what you lost. And this is an understandable reaction. But to do so, there's two things going on. One, those feelings don't do your body any good. Those stress hormones are actually detrimental to your health. And number two, you're not going to be able to fix anything with your anger. And anytime you spend dealing with that anger is taking away from the time and energy that you could put into fixing things for yourself. Then once you get past that, it typically moves to depression because you realize you're not going to get what you lost. And the final stage is acceptance. And at that point, that's where you can put all that behind you and start doing what you need to do to move forward. And the quicker you can reach that stage, the better off you'll be.
No argument from me. But John, I'm really kind of shocked. I don't know why I'm having trouble understanding why some individuals just can't say, you know what, this is a big problem. I'm surrounded by all kinds of things that can go wrong, and I just have to prepare for everything. And when this gentleman and I started talking, a few other people came by. We were off to the side of the restaurant, if you will, talking privately. And another person joined us, and you and your wife joined us, and we all started talking about it. But I'm having trouble understanding why it's so overwhelming. How did we get to the point where it's overwhelming, John? Is it our lack of education in our educational system, or have we been dumbed down by watching television? Class, John Reagan's with us. John Reagan is our financial instructor. He's the author of The Financial State of the Union. He's been presenting seminars at the Get Prepared Expo, and he's been with us many, many expos. And he comes to almost every meetup and shares his financial information with us. And he has the ability to wipe the smile off all of our faces with the financial information that he dispenses. John, we're talking about receiving this information and not panicking about it. So let's continue with that discussion. So the first thing is denial. Then what happens?
And it typically progresses into anger, then depression, before you finally reach acceptance. And that's the point where you can turn loose and start making progress. It's not that your life goes back to normal, but you're able to pick up your life from that point on.
Okay. And you talked about, last night you talked about not holding this anger inside, because it can literally have physical health impact to us. And I also mentioned to the student we're talking with that, don't keep looking in your rearview mirror about all these bad things that happened and all the damage that these politicians have done to a person's life. Let's just go forward. Now, we'll remember who they are, and at the right time, we'll have a chat with them. But right now, we need to look forward and learn skills as quickly as we can. Make sure we have books, make sure we have the materials, and make sure we've built the community and have the supplies that we need to go forward. Even the government is telling people to get prepared. Well, be prepared, that's what they say. So, John, what's next in this list of signs that we see?
Well, we were also talking about how this gets to be overwhelming for people, and why is it that way? Mm-hmm. And I think we can take a lesson from Katrina on that. And I entitled this, Starving in a Sea of Abundance. Most people remember what happened to New Orleans with Katrina, but the brunt of Katrina actually hit Mississippi. And one of the things that happened, there were about a half a dozen dolphins that got swept out to sea. And I followed the headlines because the caretakers were concerned these dolphins would starve to death because they've been raised in captivity. They didn't know how to fend for themselves. So there they are, swimming in the Gulf, food all around them. They were literally going to starve in a sea of abundance. And we have essentially, humanity has become the same way over the last 100 years or so because of technology. During the Great Depression, we still had about 30% of people in agriculture. That's down to 1 or 2% now, and even that 1 or 2% is highly leveraged using technology. We don't know how to raise our own food. We don't know how to take care of ourselves the way our ancestors did. For thousands of years, we didn't have electricity. We didn't have gasoline. But now we don't know how to live without it. And it's that transition and that mindset change that becomes so difficult. And it's not that it's something unsurmountable. It just is something that takes a change in attitude and a change of lifestyle.
John, have you seen the video series Revolution?
I watched the first season of that.
Okay. I have not seen the whole first season. We don't have television, but we've borrowed the DVD set. And Mrs. Finelli and I are watching it, and my mom is watching it. And what you said was exactly right. In this series, and I suggest you consider watching this, class, Revolution. What happens is the lights go out, and we are absolutely dependent on electricity for everything. And even the traffic lights. I mean, imagine if you live in a city and the traffic lights don't work. What kind of a problem would that cause? Well, what John is saying is we are addicted to electricity. Without it, this broadcast wouldn't work. From my end, from John's end, and from your end. So we are addicted to electricity. We're swimming in a sea of abundance. And now is the time to prepare. Class, John Reagan's with us, and he's the author of The Financial State of the Union. And John, you've talked about the anger, the depression, and ultimately the acceptance of the situation that we are in. So once we accept it, we can go forward, right?
That's right. And that's what I try to do with my presentation, is to show that there's no way that we can avoid a financial collapse. Even if we cut out all Social Security and Medicare right now to get rid of those horrendous unfunded liabilities, the social unrest by itself would be enough to bring down the country. So if you understand, we just can't get out of the situation as a country, but we can take responsibility for ourselves and our families. So you have then the decision to make, do you do something or do you give up? And to me, the only logical, rational option is to do what you can to prepare.
Well, yeah, and I agree. I'm not giving up. I'm not going down without a fight, and that's what this broadcast is all about. We are here to raise the awareness to say, don't let these guys beat you into submission, to say, you know what, it's so big, there's nothing I can do. Well, there's not much you're going to be able to do on a national level. You'd be fighting the United States Army, the United States Navy, the Marines, the Air Force. I mean, there's no way that we can operate on that level. So we're operating on the local level, which really means you and your family. That's what you need to protect and defend and provide for. So, John, let's talk about something very, very simple at this point. Let's talk about raising food. Let's talk about how long it takes to raise vegetables. We have a friend, Marjorie Wildcraft, and you like one of her quotes. Why don't you share that with us about a green thumb?
Right. Unless you're already raising your own food, which most of us aren't, she relates to the experience that if you have anything less than 100% crop failure your first 2 years, you have a green thumb.
And that's absolutely true. I mean, a lot of us think that, hey, we're okay, we've got seeds, and we think that those seeds are just going to sprout. Just put them in the ground, sprinkle a little water on them, come back in a few months and everything's good to go. No, that is not true. That's not true. Just try it. You'll see. I don't know anybody who's gotten it right the first time. Literally, nobody. Nobody. Farmers don't get it right the first time. It takes years and years and years, and it takes training the children that grow up on the farm in the ways that the parents and grandparents and great-grandparents have run the farm, so that they can pass that information down. It does not. You just don't open a pack of seeds, pop them in the ground, and everything's good. No. All right. So what about chickens, John?
But you don't get food the next week. You have to wait for it. And it's like chickens.
Yeah.
Even in the factory farms of today where they use hormones and everything else, it takes a couple of months to get a bird to a point where they're big enough to eat. And I know cattle take even longer than that.
Yeah. John, you haven't been here in a few weeks, but I can tell you that we have chickens in the kitchen of the farmhouse right this second. We bought five hens, and they were 1 day old when we got them. So they were just a little bit larger than the egg, and a little bit. And so we have these 5 chickens, and now they are about the size of a 1 pound coffee can. And they're in the kitchen, and those chickens really smell bad. And that's what you have to do when you raise chickens. So that's weeks and weeks of raising chickens in with us where it's warm, because they can't take the cold. And eventually they'll be able to. And we're acclimating them to going outside. So you're absolutely right. And that's if you have the baby chicks. So where would you get the chicks if the supply chain is down? Seriously, where would you get them? And they eat. And what would you feed them? I would say, John, in three or 4 weeks of having these chickens, we have gone through, those large bags of dog food, class? We have gone through a bag of chicken feed, half a bag of chicken feed, as big as the largest bag of dog food you can buy. And it's just 5 little chicks. So you really need to be prepared for raising chickens if you want to have them. You need to have a place for them to go, and you need to protect them from predators. John?
And, that's the point. It's you not only have to see what you need, but you have to see what your needs need. You can't just go down to the feed store and buy a sack of chicken feed once the supply chain goes down. You have to be able to raise the food that your chickens need, too.
Mm-hmm.
The
now
whole
they love bugs.
Oh, yes. But this whole just-in-time supply system is going to end up killing a lot of people. We don't have stockpiles of food like we once did. The CCC inventory is totally bare now. When I first found the report on this, I believe it was 2007 or 2008, there was just enough wheat in the inventory that they could bake half a loaf of bread for every person in America once. And even that is gone now. Everything is IOUs. So I hope those IOUs are tasty.
John, when I first moved to Missouri, I somehow got invited to join the Lions Club here. And I said, let's have an emergency committee, an emergency preparedness committee. And the Lions Club was just furious with me. It's like, don't let him talk. Please, don't let him talk. We don't want to hear what he has to say. So ultimately, I said, look, we can have a storm, we can have fires, people can be burned out of their houses. We don't know what's coming our way, but why don't we prepare? And I said, we have a school, we have a kitchen in the school, we've got 1,000 gallons of propane. The school is the toughest building in our little community of 100 people. There's a septic system there, and there's potentially a water supply. So that's the place for an emergency. And they said, well, look, if there's an emergency, we'll just call the Red Cross, and they'll bring some cots. And I said, how about this? How about we have the Red Cross store their cots here? And if they need them, we'll give them to them. But if we need them, we'll have them here. And they said, tell you what we'll do. There's a little store in town, and a little grocery store. And what we'll do is we will give them $200. And if anybody needs any emergency supplies, they can go to that store and they can draw down on that $200 that we've deposited at the store. And that's a good emergency preparedness system. I said, are you kidding me? By the way, 3 years later, that store's out of business. So that was their plan. Their plan was to have on deposit some script that you could draw down on if you needed something. I don't get it. I mean, I really don't get how people think like this. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. I don't have a piece of paper in my drawer in my shop, in my automotive shop, that says this is good for one fan belt, this is good for 1 quart of oil, this is good for a set of spark plugs. I actually have the spark plugs, the fan belt, and the cases of oil. It's crazy not to. So, John, we talked about it takes a long time to raise cows. You need fencing. You need equipment. It takes a long time to raise chickens. It takes a long time to learn how to raise chickens, cows, and vegetables. John, let's talk about what we could be facing that could really ruin our day. What kind of events could happen? Let's talk about what could cause just the grid to go down.
Well, I believe the financial collapse by itself is enough to take down the supply chain. But we're also facing the risk of the grid going down as well. Part of that is that we have such great toys nowadays to wage war with, and after a tough economic time, war is the usual way they try to get out of it. So an EMP attack with just a handful of nukes, I estimate as little as 10 or 12 worldwide, could bring down all of our technological civilization. And it's not just man that's a threat. If we get a coronal mass ejection, the right type of CME from the sun can also take the grid down. And our departing head of Homeland Security issued a warning that there's a 100% chance that our grid will be taken down by cyber attack. So no matter which way you want to slice and dice it, the government has already said the grid's going down. And without that power, the supply chain fails. You may remember seeing headlines, places where there's been like a tornado or a flood that's knocked out power, and these huge, barns where they raise chickens and turkeys, you end up with just thousands of birds dying because they don't have the ventilation and the water. And it's one thing to have a small pocket of those affected, but to have the entire country's food supply affected is quite another. And when we live in this just-in-time supply chain, once there's that kind of disruption, at the beginning of that, there is a long gap to replace that, and you're going to end up with nothing coming out the other end. And it's not easy, John, just to... Go ahead.
You mentioned these factory chicken farms. When we lived in Virginia, there were a bunch of those factory chicken farms raising Tyson chickens and other brands of chickens too. And exactly what you talked about happened. We would have a power failure, and these great big fans that are probably 4 feet tall, 5 feet tall, 6 feet tall, that operate on these electric motors, by these electric motors. If the power fails, those big ventilation fans shut down and the chickens overheat and die. Well, there was a whole business set up around picking up dead chickens, dead cows, dead animals from the euthanasia centers at veterinarian clinics and animal shelters. And they ground them up and made protein out of them for dog food and cat food. So there's a business set up around that. Hey, guys. I'm here. John Reagan, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Well, I don't know what happened there, but John, if we want to get in touch with you and get a copy of your book, The Financial State of the Union, exactly why we're going to collapse, how we're going to collapse, what got us into it. I mean, it's really very, very well written. Easy read, great for someone who is not financially trained, but it really explains how we got into this mess and that we're not going to get out of it without a collapse. So if someone wants to get a copy of that, what do they do, John?
Just come to my website, thefinancialstateoftheunion.com, and we'll have instructions for you.
thefinancialstateoftheunion.com. John, if someone wants to buy a copy, will they be able to get it autographed?
I'm working on setting that up. My primary storefront is Amazon, and those direct ones for the print copy would be more difficult. I'm trying to work on something where they can where I have a shopping cart on my site where they can do those. Right now, that's kind of an in-person only thing.
Okay. So if someone comes to a meetup and wants a copy, or they can contact me and we can have one ready for them at the meetup, that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, John, we've been talking about the supply chain and how precarious it is. So we talked about a solar event or coronal mass ejection. But is there something else that we should know, that we should consider in our preparedness plans?
Well, there's two things we can do. One is we can lay up some supplies. The bad news on that is only a small number of people will be able to do that, not because they might not be able to afford it, but because of our just-in-time supply system. The example I give is we've got approximately a 60-day worldwide supply of wheat. So if you wanted to get a year's supply of wheat for every person in the world, you couldn't do it. We could only get a year's supply for 1/6 of the people, and that's roughly 16.5%. And as we discussed, it's going to take you at least 3 years to learn how to do things right. So that tells me we need at least a 3-year supply on hand, which says at best we'd have enough for 5.5%. But to get that 5.5%, the other 94.5% would have to start. So I'm thinking at best we can take 10% out of the supply chain, which is enough to cover 0.5%. That's not great odds, but that's one way. The other way requires more of a learning curve and more action. As far as raising animals for food, rabbits and chickens are probably the easiest. They're small. They've got a faster time to maturity. But beyond that, we need to get into other sources of food, which we can do things like raise sprouts, which are easy to do. You don't need the green thumb. The bad news is you're eating your seed, so once that runs out, you're out. The other thing is there's a number of plants that are out there that are edible. You do need to do research beforehand because about 70% of the plants are poisonous. But of the remaining ones, just have to learn how to eat the weeds.
John Reagan, the Financial State of the Union. .com, thefinancialstateoftheunion.com, page 1, usaprepares.com, if you'd like to get to his website. Absolutely brilliant book. I'm very serious. And I bought a copy. I believe I'm number 14. Did I buy the 14th copy, John?
We'll discuss that later.
Yeah, I will not accept copy number 1. You know that. John Reagan, Vincent Finelli, usaprepares.com. We're going to be right back after top of the hour news.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? There we go. Your dial set correctly to usaprepares.com. Hour number 2. Deborah Tavares is with us, and we're going to talk about monitoring you, the meters, and the electromagnetic radiation involved in monitoring you. Welcome, Deborah.
Well, good morning, Vincent. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm going to discuss a few things up front, but then I've got to get into some important information that everybody's going to have to investigate and look at getting for themselves, because we are under a monolithic attack using the silent weapons system and the use of frequencies for mind control. This is monolithic. This is happening now, and it's being amped up right here, right now in the United States. So I'm going to start by just referring everybody to the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document. It's only a 44-page document, and it is on our website, stopthecrime.net, stopthecrime.net. And for anybody listening that cannot download this, if you don't have a printer or you don't have the ability to download this document, you can call our print shop, and they can print it out for you, and for print cost and postage, they'll mail it out. And that phone number is area code 707-586-9558. Again, 707-586-9558. And that would include any of the other documents that you hear me refer to on this program this morning. So, Vincent, you can also let everyone you know, too, that that's available for them, because we really want to get these documents out to everybody. So now we're looking at the silent weapons for quiet wars, and it's very important for everyone to understand that this is an operations technical manual to subvert history and law and manipulate, enslave, and create mass death on the planet. And we are the enemy, and this is the thinking of the international bankers. It's important to understand their thinking, because they have the money, they have the power, and they're using it. And they say in the beginning of this document that whenever you have a small group of people that have the ability and have the knowledge and have the mythologies to dictate the entire global economic prosperity of everyone, that this is economic conquest, because the people, the public, have not given their consent and do not know they're doing this. Therefore, this is a declaration of war. So we've got to back up and understand why we are now under attack, why there was a declaration of war put together by the U.S. Air Force, by Rockefeller, the international bankers, and Harvard University back in the late 40s is when this declaration was put together. And then it was adopted at the very first Bilderberg meeting in the Netherlands in 1954. And it's fully engaged, and it has been fully engaged. And what does that mean? The definition of this attack upon us, it is an attack using a silent weapon system that when it's applied gradually, the public adjusts and adapts to its presence and learns to tolerate its encroachment on their lives until the pressure, both psychological and economic, becomes too great and we crack up. They go on to tell us on page 8 of the Silent Weapons document that it is a system, a type of biological warfare that attacks the vitality, options, and mobility of the individuals of a society by knowing, understanding, manipulating, and attacking our sources of natural, social energy, our physical, mental, and emotional strengths and weaknesses, and that the public cannot comprehend this is a weapon and therefore cannot believe they are being attacked and subdued by any weapon at all. Although I'm sure most of us realize something is extremely wrong, we just don't know what it is. Well, now you will, because you can read the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document and understand what is happening to all of us. We're all on the same boat. And this document was never to have been made available for public scrutiny. So that's why you've got to read it and understand what they're doing. And it's most important to understand what the goal, one of the goals within this document is energy, to control all energy. And they tell us on page 6, under energy, energy is recognized as the key to all activity on Earth. Natural science is the study of resources, the control of natural energy, and social science theoretically expressed as economics in the study of the sources and control of social energy. Listen to this. Both are bookkeeping systems, mathematics. Therefore, mathematics is the primary energy science, and the bookkeeper can be king if the public can be kept ignorant of the mythology of the bookkeeping. So what does that mean? Well, let's back up a little bit. In 1933, during the bankruptcy of the United States, we were expatriated as well as our gold being stolen. And so we were also collateralized against that fraudulent debt. And everything that we own, our property, our sweat equity, our souls, were collateralized against that fraudulent debt. During that same period of time, there was a federation, the government put forth a War Powers Act, and every year the government forward with that. That makes us the enemy of the state. We are the enemy of the state. So when you look at what we have as a reality here in the United States, you realize that our government is major corporations, major banks, posing as a legitimate government, and they're not. They're corporations. So this entire apparatus was set up as corporations. We're a corporate structure, USA Inc., under the mother corporation of Earth Inc. Everything is contracts. Everything is bookkeeping. That's what they mean by this, to keep us ignorant of the mythology of the bookkeeping. We are being brought down by contracts and a corporate structure. We're being brought down by the fact that our court system was set up to benefit the bankers. Everything, all the agencies are under contract with USA Inc. Once you understand that, you suddenly realize how it was set up, and you can go down to your city halls, you can go anywhere and ask for the contract. It's all run by contract. It's not an illusion. It's not some figure blurry standing on a stage behind a curtain. This is all paperwork. They have to keep track of everything they're doing to us. They have to keep track, and it is done by contract. So I just read to you on page 6 under energy. And again, energy is recognized as the key to all activity on Earth. So let's break down what energy means. People think that that's just our electricity, our water, our gas. No. Energy is absolutely every single thing. Energy is us. We're all energy. Our bodies are 70% water. Our brain is 87% water. And what holds it together? Energy. Everything is energy. Vibrations, frequencies. So they want control of energy, all energy on the face of the planet. And this comes in to the importance of a document that we found on the White House website. And if you go to stopthecrime.net and you see the flashing direction under the banner head of stopthecrime.net that says electronic harassment, stalking, mind control, new leaked documents here, and you go to that page, you will see the document in its raw form as found on the website, and it is entitled Realizing the Full Potential of Government-Held Spectrum to Spur Economic Growth. President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, July 20th, 2012. Now, on page 12 of that 13-page document, you will find a map. The map will show you frequencies around the perimeter of the United States. We're talking about on the states that are abutting the ocean. So we're along the Pacific coast, you'll see the perimeter of the frequencies, along the Gulf Coast states, and along the eastern seaboard. Now, what does that tell us? Well, we've had a number of scientists from all over the world weigh in. And certainly the aspect of reducing the ability for us to have negative ions is part of this. You can read the detail on stopthecrime.net about that and how that works. I can tell you that the primary source of negative ion generation is the seashore, and the waves and the salty surf crashing up on the coastline rocks and the sand 24/7 generate massive negative ions of oxygen, which in turn supplies the entire nation with what can best be described as good vibrations. The prevailing winds then circulate the negatively charged oxygen ions throughout the nation. Well, they're in the process of disrupting that. So what does that mean? That means that we're going to have increased levels of depression, increased levels of mental disorders, and decreased levels of wellness. And another scientist weighed in, and because of the frequency increase, not just the fact that the negative ions are going to be reduced, but because of the frequency increase and the attack upon us that's targeting the United States by the military-industrial complex, we're going to have a lot of young children and older people become very sick. And
Deborah, hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're going into a commercial break, and we're going to come back in just a couple minutes. We're talking about warfare directed toward us by our government. They're hurting us. Deborah Tavares, stopthecrime.net. 707-586-9558 is her number, if you'd like. Deborah Tavares is with us. And Deborah, I got to tell you that the worst thing I can do is put your name up on the list of future broadcasts. So I've got you listed, and whenever you and I are on, I experience all kinds of problems here with connecting to Genesis Communications Network. There must be some people who don't like the idea of you saying what you're saying.
Well, the good news is I've said what I've said, and it's up to everybody to listen to that. Get this out. Don't leave it at my doorstep. Understand this is all real. This is all fully documented. And we must understand what we can do and what we must do. And I keep referring to the idea that we use water purification systems to filter out the poisons that they put into our water supply to poison us. We're going to now start needing to filter out all of the increased frequencies that they're going to use for mass mind control. Now, it's very important to understand this happened decades and decades ago, that they had the devices to cause and effect mind control. We've seen it here in our country with the most recent killings there at the yard, the naval yard there in D.C. And this man was under mind control. We've had a number of people that we know that have voice-to-skull conversations that are under absolute electronic attack and torture. These people are tortured night and day individually all over the country, all over the world. And this has been happening, again, for decades and decades and decades. They don't allow these people to sleep. They derail their abilities to be informative when they know things. This is why we don't have a higher level of whistleblowers. Plain and simply, the whistleblowers are attacked electronically and remotely. It's fingerprintless. And most people don't even know this type of technology exists. So when a neighbor starts to talk about that they're hearing voices in their head, or that they're burning, or that they're feeling some attacks on their leg at night while they're sleeping, people just think they're nuts. They're not nuts. And we must understand this is all real. This is our new weapon system. Forget the guns and ammunition. That's only a front, a cover to keep the broader levels of technology hidden. And you can go to stopthecrime.net and take a look at that NASA war document and get an idea of what was presented in 2001. And, of course, that was a long time ago by context of now what they've advanced to. But our biggest threat, one of our biggest threats, of course, is what they plan to do with the psychotronic weapon system that they now have in place. And what I mean by that is the cell phone towers, the antennas, they're all weaponized. And then you have this White House government document that tells us what they're going to do. They're increasing the spectrum for the benefit of the economic growth for the elite. And who's behind this? Well, corporations. You look at the White House spectrum management team that is responsible for coordinating this particular attack upon us. You have Google, you have Microsoft, you have Stanford and Harvard University. Now, it's important to understand Harvard was involved in the silent weapons for quiet wars system back in the 40s. Virginia Tech, UC Berkeley, the National Telecommunications Information, and the FCC and NSA. These are corporate agencies under the mother corporation that is dominated by the international bankers and inbred Luciferians that are in control and trying to control all energy, including our minds. Not just stealing our land, stealing our stuff. They want our minds. They want our brains. And an excellent website to go to understand what types of predictive programming has been occurring for years is called dataasylum.com. D-A-T-A asylum, A-S-Y-L-U-M.com. Also go to our website, and at the top you will see scrolling across. It's very important that you do a couple of things immediately, and that's, of course, to print off the symptoms list that's on the top of our website as you see it scrolling by. Download this symptoms list immediately and keep that with you because you're going to need it. You need it. I hear a break coming up, and so I want to get into something most important.
Deborah Tavares is with us, and we're talking about silent weapons, quiet wars. Her website is stopthecrime.net, stopthecrime.net. If you go to usaprepares.com, page 1, there's a post, page 1, top of the page, and it'll take you right to her website, stopthecrime.net. And if you'd like to purchase the documents at the cost of printing and shipping them out to you, mailing them out to you, 707-586-9558, 707-586-9558. Deborah, you mentioned some symptoms. Could you just give us a thumbnail of the symptoms that you're talking about? That
Absolutely, and it's most imperative that people download this and keep this with them, and do not go to your doctors and accept individual toxic remedies from Big Pharma. That is what this is. Remember, this is a major corporation. This is a major corporate takeover, and everything is about the bottom line. There is no thought for morality, for ethics, or for life itself. And so by inducing all of these symptoms, they make a terrific amount of money. It's about the bottom line. So what people are going to notice, again, go to stopthecrime.net. You can print this off. It's at the top as you see the opportunities to select on the scrolling right on the home page. It's entitled Microwave Radiation Frequencies, Wi-Fi Symptoms. And what they're doing by creating all the symptoms is they're jamming our immune systems. So what people are going to start experiencing is confusion, short-term memory loss, inability to focus, brain fog, sluggish thinking, difficulty concentrating, headaches, migraines, some vision disruptions. I'm only going to go through a few of these. I'm going to rely on everyone to print this off. But headache and chest pains, respiratory problems, slow reaction time, insomnia. Again, when you're not able to sleep and get the amount of sleep that you need, you wake up irritable, angry, and we're going to see increased anger in our society as a whole because of all of the jamming of our systems. Night sweats is another big concern. Many people are experiencing that. Dizziness, disorientation, balancing problems, agitation, anxiety, depression, irritability, seizures. Seizures is a big one. Many people now are experiencing seizures, and vertigo, nausea, vomiting. Violent behavior, we see that on an uprise now. Weakened immune system, high blood pressure. They can create high blood pressure because they're jamming your immune system. So it's important to understand when you have these leg cramps and they're shutting down our cells. This is cell death. They're changing our genetic makeup. They are in a transformation agenda of mankind, of humans. This is what it tells us in the NASA war document. Humans have taken over in vastly shortened evolution. They're redirecting evolution. These are these insane, psychopathic, inbred controllers that have all the wealth. This is what their plan is. They're eugenist. It's called transhumanism. And the NASA war plan is a plan that was important. It has important roles in sedating the population through chemicals, biologicals, radio and microwave frequency manipulations. So go to stopthecrime.net, read the NASA war plan, and understand we are the enemy. Also, weakened immune systems, high blood pressure, as I was saying, DNA breakage, changes in our genetic makeup, kidney damage, cancer, leukemia, brain tumors, dementia, difficulty with your joints, heart attacks. Yes, they can create and do assassinate people remotely now with frequencies. This has been done for quite a long time, actually. So again, autoimmune disease, just general worsening health. So if you're already sick, you're going to become sicker. So demineralizing our cells. There are many things we can do to prevent this. Number one is knowing that this is headed our way. Many people are already feeling many of these symptoms. Very important on our site, too, watch the outer limits, the grid. That will show you about how the cell phone towers are going to affect our minds. This is for psychotronic. These are all psychotronic weapons. Again, the cell towers, antennas, all of the wireless communication devices, they are harming us. This is a techno death trap that we're in right now. We're being subdued by technologies that should have been used for the betterment of mankind, but they were subverted, and now they're under the control of those that have us in the crosshairs. So I can tell you that what they say in the Silent Weapons document is that the victors, they call it a victory by our consent due to our lack of knowledge. But I want to tell you that's not true. It's an artificial consent because we're being poisoned. We're being coerced. So we have to stop consenting. We have to stop eating the Illuminati food. We cannot eat the packaged foods. They tell us in the NASA war document on page 98, for example, they'll contaminate our water supply. They also tell us that they will use RF and microwave frequencies and, in parentheses, towers, the cell towers. They tell us that the typical scenario takedown of the U.S. by 10 people and $10 million. The use of binary biologicals, imported vitamins, clothing, our food supply, terror, bio attacks. They go on that this would be accompanied by serious psychological warfare using the mass media to terrorize us, because they tell us in the NASA war plan that they will capture, torture Americans in living color on prime time. Now, Dennis Bushnell delivered this PowerPoint in 2001, just a couple of months before the 9/11 occurred. And they also tell us here that they will take down critical infrastructure. And they did just a couple of months after this presentation. They'll use binary chemicals and biologicals on the continental United States, and again in the NASA war plan. They tell us RF, radio frequencies, and microwave frequencies against our brain. More importantly, it's important to understand what they've told us in the Silent Weapons document. They told us that, and this is on page 7 of the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars, the interest of the future world order, peace and tranquility, was decided to privately wage a quiet war against the American public, and an ultimate objective permanently shifting the natural and social energy, and in parentheses, wealth of the undisciplined and irresponsible many into the hands of the self-disciplined, responsible, worthy few. And they go on to say that in order to implement this objective, it was necessary to create and secure and apply new weapons, which, as it turned out, was a class of weapons so subtle and sophisticated in their principle of operation and public appearance as to earn for themselves the name silent weapons. And this is the program. This is what is subduing us without our knowledge. And again, most people don't realize they're being attacked and subdued by any weapon at all. Again, I can't underscore enough what they tell us in the Silent Weapons document on page 10. The final key to economic control had to wait until there was sufficient data and high-speed computing equipment. So it's important to understand we now have the high-speed computing equipment in NSA, and that's in Bluffdale, Utah, a 1 million square foot data collection center. But there are more of those centers other than just in Utah. But it's most important to understand they now have the technologies to do what they've long planned to do. The smart grid, the smart metering system is all part of that. We must understand what that's about. The smart meter is, of course, nationwide. It's worldwide. It's a massive network of pulsed microwave frequencies. This mesh grid network of frequencies has been planned to structure the thought patterns of ordinary Americans through the smart meters, all disguised as promoting new energy efficiency, when actually it was set up for deep spying and behavior modification programs hooked up to fusion centers, facial recognition software, HD cameras in stores and schools, attached to pulse beam microwave emitters to entrain our moods and block our thoughts, and share the data with NSA and the Department of Homeland Security. And few people understand that mega corporations are involved behind the scenes, directly orchestrating this massive operation. These corporations have been managing pulse beam microwave emitting streetlights, operating full strength during rush hour and serving as listening posts for other times. You can look that up. They're deploying these new streetlights in areas of San Francisco and 8 other cities right now. They say it's a pilot program. It is not a pilot program. When you hear it's a pilot program, that means the beginning of full on-board launch. So it's important to understand these silent systems and these silent weapons are fingerprintless. Their methods are to subdue the population without the people even knowing that they're being manipulated and attacked. So now you know. So what you do with this will depend upon how long you live, how long your children live, how long your grandchildren live. You need to know this. You also need to understand there are precautions. And I'm going to give this information right now because I've just been starting to post it yesterday on our solutions page on stopthecrime.net. So again, just as you've been ordering water purification systems, there's other things you must do. Now, the cell phone towers are directly involved with this mass mind control and the frequencies that will cause all these symptoms, including death and cancer. So it's important to understand what you can do to measure these frequencies to see if the towers in your neighborhood have been turned up. So the first thing you must do is go to antennasearch.com. You will put in your address, and you will have the opportunity to download, and I would recommend everybody does that. Download it and put it in a file so you can keep it. You will get a 4-mile radius. In general, it's a 4-mile radius around your home or any address you key in to get the locations of the cell phone towers and the antennas nearest you in your community. Know where these are. Now, not all the cell phone towers are listed on that. However, most of them are. So investigate, find out where they are, and understand these are weapons. These are weapons being deployed nearest your homes in your neighborhoods right now. Full on-board deployment. So what do you do to test to see when they turn these up and start to injure neighborhoods, which is what they're going to do? You can go to, it's a company called LESS, LESS-EMF, LESSEMF.com, and we have this device, and it's proven to be extremely important for our survival because they have used the cell phone towers on many people, and people's plants and shrubs around their homes on the side where the towers are dying. So they're pumping...
Deborah, hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're going into a commercial, and you're absolutely right. We'll be right back. Class Deborah Tavares is with us, and we're talking about electromagnetic radiation. We're talking about cell phone towers. We're talking about them being used as weapons. And Deborah, you mentioned LESS EMF. I just talked to the CEO of the company, and we'll find out some more information coming forward on this broadcast. But please continue.
Yes, very important that everybody understand, and this may need to be purchased on a neighborhood basis. These testing devices are not inexpensive. But in LESSEMF.com, catalog number J481, J481. It is a high-frequency meter, and it's extremely important for you to use those on the sides of your homes where the towers are to see when they're amping and ramping these up. Also, it's extremely important, we have this on the solutions page of stopthecrime.net, to put screens over the sides, outsides of your windows, on the sides of your home where the cell phone towers are. That will help to reduce most of these waves. It will slow down most of these waves. But if you see plants dying, then there's evidence that there's too many electromagnetic waves that are affecting them. So it's important to understand we are under attack. Go to stopthecrime.net. Make sure you distribute the warning to all first responders and your fire, local police chiefs, etc., warning them about their wireless communication devices and how they're used to affect the brain. They're going to be taken down first. This is why they are outfitting our first responders with all this wireless technology and putting them in their cars and trucks with this wireless technology, just blasting them, ricocheting off the interiors of their vehicles and pulsating through them. This is how they will take them down, make them extremely angry and irritable, and far more intolerant of us, the enemies of the state. But I want to also say that it's very obvious when you look at some interviews overseas that most of the head government officials are already under mind control. It's extremely important to understand that the banking controllers have this system in place, and they can expand it now onto large groups of people and put large areas under mass mind control. That's why it's important to understand the symptoms. It's very important to get some of these devices to test to see as these things get ramped up. And you can, by knowing, sidestep this. Now, I want to say that we've done some research here recently on the White House in D.C., and they have a massive amount of cell phone towers and antennas around the White House. We also know that they have the most psychotronic weapons deployed in that area. And this is largely why we're seeing insanity coming out of the White House. Sadly, on top of the fact that we were co-opted, we have bankers and corporations posing as a legitimate government. Now we have mind-controlled figures posing as a legitimate government. This is a fact. This is a fact. They are under mind control. It's important to understand we have all been subverted through years and years of television and education. You'll see in the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document that they told us they would rewrite history and law. This is on page 35. And they would subject the public to a deviant creation, thus being able to shift our thinking from personal needs to highly fabricated outside priorities. They go on to say the general rule is that there is profit in confusion. The more confusion, the more profit. Therefore, the best approach is to create problems and then offer solutions. Now, a number of scientists have weighed in. Planet X is all part of the disinformation to add to mass confusion. That is not our most immediate concern. We can't do anything about that, even if that were real. And I can tell you that what is really happening behind the scenes is this massive ramping up of psychotronic weapons against all of us, the enemies of the state.
Deborah, thank you so much for a fabulous, fascinating, educational broadcast. I hope and trust that this has ramped up the attention of this class to take action right now. And the first thing you should do is consider placing screens on your outside windows. Deborah, thanks so much. StopTheCrime.net. Deborah Tavares, StopTheCrime.net. I'm Vincent Finelli. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. Honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.